This is one of those videos where I'm going to piss off my entire audience. So get ready to be very angry. I am about to describe to you why smart guys will never, with rare exception, never make the big income, the big money. Now, I didn't say make higher than the average income. It is statistically true that if the average guy makes something like, and I don't know what the number is, $35,000 a year, a smart guy might on average make $60,000 a year or $50,000 a year. So yes, smart guys often do make more than the average income. But most smart guys, and yes, there are always exceptions to every rule, Elon Musk, Bill Gates, these are rare exceptions to this rule, but most smart guys will never in their entire lives make the big income. The money that I make, high six figures, low seven figures, high seven figures. Yes, you might make $100,000 a year, you might make $80,000 a year, $130,000 a year, sure. But make $250,000 a year, $500,000 a year, $800,000 a year, $1.5 million a year? Nope, they're never gonna do it. And I'm about to show you in specific detail exactly why that is. This has been occurring so often in my content and in my normal day-to-day life that I recently came up with an acronym to describe these individuals, and that is LISG. L-I-S-G, low income smart guy. A LISG is a guy who is higher than average IQ, higher than average intelligence, usually higher than average education, bachelor's degree, often master's degree, even more, who will never make more than about $70,000 a year for his entire life. He might make as much as maybe $120,000, but that's it. He will never, ever make the big money ever. And I will show you why. I will give you several examples that happened over the last several weeks, but I could give you hundreds of examples of this over the course of my life. First example, this happened actually in real life, not online. I was talking to someone in Dubai. Right now I'm in Mexico, but in Dubai I was talking to someone. It was an investor, and he was a LISG. Very intelligent, very articulate, very highly educated, college degree, beta male, very appropriate, basically my opposite in every way. And we're talking about investing. And he mentions a term called EPS. It's a stock term. And I said, what's that? And he goes, what? You don't know what EPS means? He eventually explained it to me. But he basically lost his shit. I can't believe that you don't know what EPS, you call yourself an investor? How can you possibly be an investor when you don't even know the basic concept of what EPS is? I can't believe, and it goes on and on and on and on about what a moron I am. He didn't use that term, but what a moron I was because I don't know anything about investing because I don't know what EPS means. And of course, he went on to explain it. Please, you LISGs in the comments, don't explain what EPS means. I already know what it means, and I still don't give a fuck. But anyway, just one problem as he's ranting and screaming. My net worth is quadruple his. Oops. And when I say net worth, I mean excluding the value of my companies, because those are hard to evaluate. I'm just talking about my investing portfolio and his investment portfolio. Mine is quadruple the size of his. So he was more focused on the terminology rather than actually making the money. And the reason I know my investment portfolio was quadruple his is because I asked him. Once he got done ranting and screaming about what a moron I am and how I don't know anything about investing, I said, great, what's your net worth? Or what's your investing net worth? What's your portfolio? What is it? What's the value? Well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, you're lecturing me on how I don't know anything about investing, so clearly you must be worth a lot more money than me, right? So you should have no fear about telling me how much millions, bazillions of dollars you must be worth. So tell me what your net worth is and I'll tell you what mine is, and let's see who has the bigger dick. And he told me, and I told him, and he looked like a fucking moron. And that's an example of the LISG who's focused more on the minutia and the vocabulary than actually the results, which is the money. Give you another example, speaking of vocabulary. A few weeks back, and this happens all the time, so I could give you numerous examples of this. This is just one off the top of my head. A few weeks back, there was a guy who watched one of my videos and left a comment on the video. It was either in Instagram or TikTok. I don't remember which one. I'm all over the place. And he basically said, Caleb, you're talking about margin, but you're really talking about markup. Stop calling it margin and start calling it markup, because markup is this mathematical formula and margin is this mathematical formula. And I basically said, yeah, you're right. You're correct. I just use those terms interchangeably. I don't really care. He lost his shit and called me a fraud. How dare you call yourself a business expert when you don't know the difference? Yes, I know the difference. I just don't care. He's been interchangeably. You don't know the difference between margin and markup? Oh, I'm not. Now, just one problem. I would bet $50,000 of my own money that I make not only more than this guy, but multiples more than this guy. I would actually venture a guess this guy probably doesn't even have his own business. But this low-income smart guy who didn't make anywhere near what I made was just beside himself because I didn't use the correct terminology. He wasn't focused on the money and the action to get the money and to get the results. Instead, it was the minutia and the detail. And that's the challenge with the low-income smart guy. Speaking of business, I do 3 videos here a week on how to set up your own location-independent business and move to a less bad country, or at least set up an international backup plan and do all these things for very little money. So if that's of interest to you, you should subscribe to this channel, put a like on the video, click the notification bell, and leave a comment on this video. That way you'll get this content for free. I will give you yet another example. A few weeks back, I had a video, I think it was on YouTube, and I mentioned in the video that I wasn't 100% clear between the difference. This is Bitcoin now, Bitcoin talk. I wasn't clear on the difference between a Bitcoin fork and a Bitcoin halving. And a few people in the comments lost their shit, and at least 2 people actually emailed me. They actually took the time to email. You call yourself a Bitcoin investor when you don't even know the difference between a fork and a halving, you fucking moron. I can't believe, oh my, and they're just beside themselves that I don't, and I still don't 100% know the difference, but I don't care, and I'll tell you why I don't care in a second, between a fork and a halving. Just one slight problem. I have made 7 figures in pure capital gain profit in Bitcoin investing. Okay, that's over $1 million. It's well over $1 million that I have made in Bitcoin as real profit since 2017. And I'm going to say that again, it's real profit. That's not at one point my Bitcoin valuation was worth more than $1 million and now it's not. Because a lot of Bitcoin nerds will do that. Well, at one point it was worth this. Well, right now it's not. But at one point, oh no. This is actual capital gain I took out of my Bitcoin investing as pure profit. As a matter of fact, my original Dubai apartment, I did a walkthrough if you want to watch it up there. That entire apartment was paid a year in advance from some of the profits I pulled out of my Bitcoin around 2020. Now, these 4 or 5 smart guy Bitcoin nerds who are just distraught that I didn't know the difference between a fork and a halving, how many of them do you think have made 7 figures in Bitcoin? Probably none of them, maybe 1 at best. And again, that illustrates the problem of why smart guys tend not to make the big money. They are focused on the exact wrong shit. They're focused on the minutia, they're focused on the vocabulary, they're focused on all the shit that doesn't fucking matter. And by the way, this thing about me being lectured by smart guys who make far less money than me, how I don't know anything about the thing I'm using to make a lot of money that they're not making, this is anything new. This was even before the internet. Years ago, in the 90s or even, I think, early 2000s, way before I was ever on the internet, when I was a computer consultant, I was talking to another computer consultant. We were talking about computer stuff. And he mentioned something called a floating point average. And I said, what's that? Because I'm dumb. I never went to college. I don't know anything. I'm stupid. What's a floating point average? This guy, his eyes bug out of his... You're a computer consultant. You are servicing clients in the computer consultant industry, and you don't know what a floating point average is? I can't believe... And he goes on and on about I was a disgrace to the computer consulting practice because I didn't know what a floating point... If I had gone to college and gotten a computer science degree like he did, I would have completely understood and been a professional computer consultant who understands on and on and on. Just one problem. My income as a computer consultant was triple his. Oops. Moreover, this guy was 20 years older than me. So this guy is 20 years older, doing the same thing I'm doing, in the same market I was doing it, making 1/3 of my income. And he is screaming at me that I don't know what I'm talking about, while I'm making quadruple what he's making on the thing he's saying I don't know anything about. Because he was a LISIG. He was a low-income, smart guy. He was way smarter than me, and that's why he was making 1/3 of what I was making. Now, to be fair, I am not dumb. I have a low genius IQ. Apparently, my IQ is somewhere in the 140s, which my understanding is low genius. Not that that matters, not that I care, but I am not traditionally educated. I never went to college. I never graduated high school. I never dropped out of high school. I went to all 4 years, but I got 2 credits short. My mom was fucking furious because that's another low-income smart gal, is my mother. But anyway, by now, maybe you can see the pattern and maybe you can see why so many smart guys will never actually make the big money. Now, let me give you some opposite examples of guys who actually have made the big money. guys who make more money than me, guys who I have looked up to. I have spoken with and networked with a lot of men throughout the past 15, 20 years, including now, who make a lot more money than me, and I make a lot of money. I do very, very well. I'm not gonna tell you what I make for various reasons, but I do very, very well. And these are guys who are making even more than I'm making. I've spoken with a lot of these guys. How many of these guys do you think ever got a little pissed off or irritated with me when I used an incorrect term or didn't know a certain term? How many of these guys do you think? 5, 11, 20, 3 or 4? 0. None of them. And believe me, there are some stupid things I've said in front of these guys, and they didn't care. You know what they were focused on? Caleb, what's your top line? What's your gross profit? What's your net profit? What's your profit and loss in the last 3 months? What are you doing right now? What's your marketing? In other words, they're focusing on the two things that actually matter: action and results. They're not focused on forks and margins. They're focused on actions. What are you doing right now? What are you doing this week? What are you doing this quarter? And results. How much money are you actually making? How much money is actually going into your wallet? Those are the only two things they cared about. And that's why they were not listigs. They were high-income men focused on what matters and not the minutia. I'll give you another example. Many years ago, I read an article in a magazine, and I was so impressed with it, I tore it out of the magazine. I kept it in a plastic page for years. I don't have it anymore. I wish I had it, then I could show you. And so some of the details are hazy. But this was an article profiling a business owner, completely self-made multimillionaire, a guy who started from nothing and made something around $24 million. $24 million net worth, and he wasn't even that old. In the food industry. Started a business from scratch, built it to big dollars, making shitloads of money. And he didn't know how to read. He was illiterate. He did not know how to read. And the article was hilarious because the reporter was a low-income smart guy who was just beside himself. Well, how can you not know how to read? I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, you have to learn how to read to function in society. And this is a guy worth $24 million with a smile like, I think I'm okay. And the reporter asked him a few questions like, well, how do you wine and dine clients when you go out to restaurants? How do you order off the menu if you don't know how to read? And the self-made multimillionaire who didn't know how to read said, I just order a cheeseburger. And the reporter's like, what? And the guy's like, well, yeah, I figured out really quick that every restaurant, including every fancy restaurant, always has a cheeseburger, no matter what. No matter where you go, they got a cheeseburger. So what I do is I sit with my clients, and I pull out the menu, and I can't read. I'm looking at this thing. It's gibberish to me. I have no idea what I'm reading. And I go, yes, And then I close the menu, and I hand it to the waiter, and I say something like, I'm going to keep it simple tonight. I'll just have the cheeseburger. And 99.9% of the time, the waiter goes, okay, and then I'm fine. Genius, because this guy was not focused on the minutia of looking cool or being right or being professional or saying everything correctly or having the correct terminology and all that other irrelevant bullshit that doesn't matter. He was focused on what? Action and results. And that's it. That's why I make a lot of money. That's why I live a fantastic life. I don't focus on the vocabulary or the terms. I don't give a fuck. You know what I focus on? Making millions of dollars. That's what I focus on. And guess what that means? I now make millions of dollars. It works out very well. And this is why smart guys, the vast majority of them, will never make the big dollars. They are too focused on the minutia that doesn't matter. And very unfortunately, and it breaks my heart to say this, but it's true, I know my audience very well, there are many of you in my audience who are listigs and always will be. You will never make the big money. You might make a little more money than you're making now, but you'll never make the big dollars that I make, and certainly not more than I make. And the only way that you can get to the point of starting to make that kind of money is by realizing what you are doing wrong, which I just profiled in this video, and that is to stop giving a fuck about the little details that don't fucking matter, and instead get off your ass and find a niche, find a solution to their problem, and market that item in a location independent fashion and manage the money when it comes in. And you can make more money than me. And I'll end with that because that's a tragedy of this whole situation. There are many of you in my audience who are more talented than me. You're smarter than me. You could start a business, a location independent business, and smoke me and surpass me and make way more money than me. But you won't make anywhere near as much money as I'm currently making because you're too focused on margins and floating point averages and forks and halvings and a bunch of other bullshit that doesn't matter. What do you want to focus on? Totally up to you, but now you know why most smart guys will never make the big money. If you want to watch another video on the one thing that is stopping you, although it probably won't help you if you're a Lissig, but it's worth watching anyway, it's that video right there. You should watch it right now, and I'll see you in that video.